an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, Season 1-ish, episodes 48 and 49. In these episodes, we meet Captain Smoker, who just, apparently his whole thing is that he smokes a lot. Sure. Okay. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. Gabriella in the chat says, and he's smoking. He is a little smoking. I can't even be mad. That's true. Instantly, if a guy is smoking, though, he becomes like exponentially less attractive. I just find smoking repugnant. And it's wild to me that I was once engaged to a smoker. I don't know how I thought I was going to be able to live with that, but it's a good thing that didn't work out. And Owen occasionally likes to smoke cigars. So when we first got together, and I think everybody does this in relationships, at first, I didn't want to be like, don't do this, don't do that. I wanted to be cool and laid back. Why? I am not cool or laid back. I'm not. And there's no point pretending to be with somebody that you're going to live with, because they will find out that you aren't in good time. But I was trying to be cool and laid back. And he wanted to smoke a cigar on his birthday, but it was pouring rain outside. And I was like, all right, we'll just go in your office and smoke in there. I'm sure it'll be fine. And he did. And I sat out in the living room. His office is literally on the other end of the house. Not a big house, granted, but still. Within like 5 minutes of him lighting up, all I could think was it smells like a bowling alley. I never realized that cigar smoke and bowling alleys went together in my head. But the smell, as soon as I smelled it, I was like, I'm in a bowling alley. It was just immediate. And it got so bad, even though he was in that room only. And he came out and he was like, thanks for letting me smoke that. And I was like, you're welcome. We are never doing that again. I'm sorry, but it will be outside forever from now on. And he started laughing. Like, I think he knew it was probably not going to work out that well. But to his credit, when he went back into his office the next morning, he could not believe how bad it smelled in there from him smoking the day before. And it hung on forever. And evidently, he can deal with like fresh cigar smoke that he just lit. But when it's like old smoke smell, that's when he starts to get like sincerely grossed out, and he didn't even want to go in his office for like a couple days, you know? So I have baggage around cigars. Cigarette smoke also, my grandmother smoked really heavily, and I have always been sensitive to it. My lungs don't like it. The smell gives me a headache, all that stuff. So watching this dude just like sitting in a room dense with smoke and two in his mouth at once, and he's got this practically like a bandolier of cigars on his coat that he carries around with him. Not that the two in his mouth ever seem to run out, but it's early days yet. We may see him finish a cigar and have to light a new one. I don't know. I don't anticipate that. I have a feeling that it's going to be the same two cigars forever, because that's part of his magic, maybe. Somebody mentions, too, in the episode that it's suspected that he has devil fruit powers. is this the devil fruit power? Like, that seems like a complete ripoff. Granted, I don't know how that would be manifesting. So is it that the devil fruit power is that he can control smoke and make it into a weapon? Because we don't really get a clear view of what he does to those dudes later on. Or is the power related to the fact that he has to smoke or does smoke? Like, don't know. Don't have that information yet. That said, if I got a power that required me to have to smoke to use it, I think I'd opt out. I don't think I'd be able to do that. That's not enough. That's too much. Like, that's a chore, you know? I want a power that I can just use whenever. But I guess we'll see. We'll have to see what happens. So, remind me, guys, the name of this island again. I keep wanting to say, like, Laguna. Like, Logue Town. Thank you, guys. And when everybody lands at the beginning of this episode, which, by the way, is called Believe in Wonderland, which is a weird title for this episode. I'm not entirely sure what the deal is, if it's just meant to be like, oh, here's a town that's got something for everyone, I guess. But it just doesn't feel like that bit of wonderment doesn't seem to be the main theme after the first 10 minutes of the episode. Alex says, I've heard the theory that Oda called it that because it was the prologue and the epilogue of Roger's life. I don't understand the relevance. The prologue and the epilogue. Oh, Logue Town. I'm sorry. I thought you meant the title Believe in Wonderland. I got you. Prologue, epilogue, Logue Town. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. I like that. I like any time that there's like a reason that's very specific for something. It doesn't matter if it's important, but I always find that interesting. So everybody makes like similar statements as they do at the end of the last episode. What they are each going to do. Sanji's going to look for ingredients and women. Nami is going to search for clothes. Usopp is going to look for supplies for their next adventure. Zoro is going to try and find a sword, but he doesn't have any money. And it turns out that he asked to borrow money from Nami, and she told him that he could, but only if he paid 300% interest in return. Which, damn, Nami, that is cold-blooded. What is her deal? I found it honestly really funny. I continue to deeply enjoy her. What a weird character. She keeps coming out with like these little personality quirks that I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, she won't lend him any money, and she's like mocking him for being flat broke. And Luffy, of course, is going to find the execution platform where the king of the pirates was executed. I will be honest, I was surprised that he didn't try to find something to eat first. I thought that would be top of the list. But evidently, the pirate is the one thing that supersedes his interest in eating. He doesn't eat for these entire 2 episodes, as far as I recall. He has some booze, but that's it. Or does he have booze? He has some drink, and that's all. And he sleeps. But he doesn't eat, which is shocking, frankly. So he just runs off without them making any sort of agreement as to a rendezvous point for all of them. And the manic excitement that he has is just, it's a lot. He is so thrilled. And the way that things unfold throughout this episode, we have like a short look at what's going on with each person. So first we have Sanji, who is he's looking at all of these different women and assigning characteristics to their like appearance that line up with food, which is, you know what? I probably do that with dudes, honestly, if I think about it. We've got Nami, who's trying out all of these different outfits, and she keeps being like, how's this? How's this? And he keeps giving her all of these compliments that in a lot of respects don't make a ton of sense. He says elegy at one point. I don't know what that means. And then when we see the actual proprietor, he has a coat hanger head. Like his hair, it looks like was shaped into a coat hanger, or else his head is shaped like that. I don't know. But yeah, she takes up a bunch of his time and attention, and then she walks out without buying anything. Okay. So yeah, Sanji walking around, a top quality aperitif, 2 Ponderine champagne-like beauties. This whole town is brimming with the finest ingredients around. I can't decide what to go after first. And then he spots the, quote, main dish, which is Pirate Queen Nameless. I will call her that. Who he spots later. And literally nothing is different about her appearance except that she has freckles. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, my mistake. And I was like, as a freckles haver, go fuck yourself. Y'all, I can't tell you how often I hated my freckles when I was young. I was very self-conscious about them. But people made so many comments about them. Now that I'm older, fine, I don't care. But I really hated them. And they were mentioned a lot in classic literature as being an indicator on their own that a woman is unattractive. Even there was like a Narnia book in which they go to like meet a prospective princess, and she's described as, it says, we went to meet so-and-so, but nothing came of that. And there's an aside where a guy says, squints and has freckles. And Susan says, oh, the poor dear. And I remember as a kid who had bad eyesight and freckles, I was like, wow, okay. So, yeah, I really, I get very salty about that. But yeah, he spots her and the camera cuts away pretty much immediately. So I don't know what winds up happening with that or how he loses track of her in order to try and find her again later. So then we go to Usopp, and he is in this weird, it sort of looks like the kind of place that should be a flea market. There's just a ton of random crap in here. And the proprietor says everything in here once belonged to pirates who returned alive from the Grand Line. They are especially valuable goods. And Usopp gets immediately taken in with this line. I have to assume that this dude is completely full of shit. I really enjoy in the background, there's a lot of this that I can't read, but there is one thing that's labeled as 10 million berries, and then it's crossed out, and it says 500. Guys, this has become such a thing on websites lately. I mean, it's always been a tactic in, for example, like Kohl's or Hobby Lobby. Those places will mark shit up crazy, and then they will have these signs up for 60% off and really make you feel like you're getting a deal. When, in fact, that's just a psychological tactic, and they aren't planning on ever charging more than the sale price, ever. Like, they'll take your money and take those signs down, but, like, that's built into their model. It's not really a sale. It's you finally getting things at the price that they should be listed at. Probably still too high. This is a thing now, though, on like practically every website I go to, even like fairly reputable sites by people that I have purchased many things from before. They will just have things perpetually, quote, marked down, and I will return a year and a half later and the exact same discount and alleged sale is still happening. And it's just, that's the permanent price. Why are you doing this? But I guess it must work. You know, I have to assume there's a reason they do that shit. So yeah, we only do business with warriors of the sea here. We warmly welcome gentlemen such as yourself. And this guy has like this wild unibrow. And he gets closer and closer to Usopp until he is like literally they're nose to nose. And he like presses up against him and bounces off him for a second. And it's really funny because Usopp has the super long nose, and this guy has almost like an inverted nose. And he holds up, this was the favorite gun of Gold Roger, and he holds up what looks like a Nerf gun. And Usopp immediately falls for it. I love this. This never even occurred to me. When you have a character who's good at lying, usually the gimmick is that they can tell when other people are lying. But Usopp being, I guess, a bad liar. He's a bad liar. So I guess it makes sense that he can't tell when other people are lying. Because I can't believe how much he falls for this. Bless his heart. So then we go to the first scene where we see Captain Smoker. And he is being brought some news by this underling about the fact that we are getting a visit from Monkey D. Luffy. He has been spotted, or he will be seen, like they think that he's headed this way. And we are going to have to do something about this guy. He comes in, and I didn't understand what was happening for a second. The room is really smoky, but it looks like it could just be steam. And Smoker is like piling up rocks, I guess. I don't even know. But for a moment, what I thought this was a sauna. Because you know how in a sauna you have like the pile of heated rocks and you pour water over them and it steams. I thought that was like what he was playing with. And when he says Captain Smoker and the camera pulls out and you see the cigars in his mouth, I was like, oh, this is truly horrifying. I found it interesting that nobody seems bothered by the smoke. It doesn't seem like anybody, has trouble being around it. But yeah, all of these things, the rocks that he's been so carefully stacking spill. And he yells at the guy for making them all fall apart. It's not good to be tense. I got my own pace I do things at. I don't know why this endeared me to him a little bit, but him saying this first, it's not good to be tense. I have my own pace. And then later on, he's like, why are you so agitated? You know that I've been able to take care of motherfuckers before. I really appreciated this attitude. Like, genuinely being like, what's your deal, man? It's fine. And later on, a little girl runs into him with her ice creams. And it's treated like this moment where he could squash her like a bug. And instead, he says, my pants ate your ice cream. Here's $5. Go buy a triple scoop instead. I loved this. I loved it so much. And it's interesting to me that everybody is so afraid of him when it doesn't seem like he's going out of his way to be a dick. People are just scared of him, probably a combination of what he can do and what he looks like, because he looks very intimidating. And this series, this information that they get about pirates having just landed, of course, we all assume it's Luffy that he's going to meet at the docks. He asks here, where's Tashigi? And the guy says, she had errands to run, but she said she would show up for training. So this should have been my clue about the girl that we wind up seeing later. He calls her a dumb girl. But anyway, this moment is when we see the pirate that we're actually dealing with here, who winds up being nobody. But guys, I cannot get over this. He's just alighting at this port and expecting everybody to hand all of their shit over with no argument of any kind. He has a real weird look to him too. He's like, looks kind of like a combination of Jafar and, was it the guy who played the Cardinal in Hunchback of Notre Dame? But he's got like a mustache that is a huge crescent up to his eyebrows. And he apparently is like called Crescent San, and he has a beard that also goes in a crescent up forward on his... Look, the guy he's very distinctive. I thought he might wind up being a little bit more than he winds up being. He gets taken out without so much as a scene of acknowledgement. Like, we see the moment that Smoker turns up, and we see the moment that they get all wrapped in rope. Crescent Sama, that's it. I, Galley the Crescent Sama, will use these vital food supplies on my way to becoming king of the pirates. And everybody is like smirking at him. It's a weird moment because we see these dudes smiling, but they look like they're facing... I wish that I could do a screen share right now. I got a little confused here because we see Smoker watching and grinning to himself, and then there's a bunch of dudes standing in front of Smoker. They are not in uniform, and they look like they should be pirates, but they are smirking in such a way that it almost like it felt like they were not on that guy's side. I think it's supposed to be that they are with this pirate, but Smoker snuck up behind them or something. So they're just unaware that he's standing right there ready to start some trouble. And this guy says, hand it all over thankfully, which is a weird line. I think maybe what they were getting at with that one is like, be grateful to give us your stuff. This is one of the moments where the translation doesn't work super well. And yeah, he asks this guy, oh, so you're Monkey D. Luffy. I'll test you and see if you're worthy setting foot in my town. And I was like, he just said who he was. I guess you missed it, but like, he's definitely not Luffy. And then as he's just standing there, the smoke begins to swirl around him and the camera cuts away. And we don't actually see what happens. We go to Nami, and she is talking, like gossiping with this woman who is putting a bunch of clothes in a bag. This woman is wearing a dress that just says funk across the front, which I found so funny. And she says that this guy has just like beat up every pirate, that he's unbeatable, he's a monster, he may even have devil fruit powers. And then when we go back to the scene, all of these pirates and the captain are all wrapped in rope. I love that there's a dude behind him going, oh man, good job, Captain. We'll get those 30,000 berries or 30 million berries now. And immediately, Captain Smoker says, are you an idiot? Do you have eyes? This is obviously not Monkey D. Luffy. There's no way that these pathetic wastes would have been worth 30 million berries. Like, come on. Oh boy. It is really nice to have like a super rational like villain for once. I'm very interested to see how this villain shakes out. I don't want him to like not be a villain exactly. I want him to be, but I like that I kind of enjoy him in a way, you know, it's nice. It's unexpected. So then we go to Luffy himself, and he winds up walking straight up to Captain Smoker and asking him where the execution platform is. Smoker kind of has a moment of like wondering about this kid, But it isn't until later that he gets confirmation via the official wanted poster that has Luffy's photo on it. And he finally, this guy says, follow the smoke, and sends directions to the platform using the smoke from his cigar. What? That is wild to me. I am very curious about the other things that this dude can do with the smoke. So then we go to Zoro, who is trying to find a sword. And we get the little bit of information that Nami told him he'd have to pay 300% interest. He is looking through this window in a very like Harry Potter staring at the Nimbus 2000 sort of scene. And he turns at this fracas, how do you say it, in the street. And it's this girl who, these guys are saying, what is it that they're like trying to do? Our boss is behind bars, all thanks to him. We aren't happy with things as they are. We're going to bring your corpse to him to see. So I'm assuming that these guys are people who have an issue with Smoker. And they think that by killing her, they're going to get him to let their boss out, I guess. Not well thought out. But she says, very well, I will fight you. And they're like, give me a fucking break. What can a girl possibly do? And they head toward her, and Zoro, in a moment of instinct, is running forward, pulling his sword out, ready to help. She drops her package, pulls the sword out of the sheath that was wrapped up in burlap or whatever it is, and absolutely fucking smokes these dudes, pun intended, in an instant. And even Zoro is like, word. I love this though. Everybody is like, you're amazing. And then as soon as she turns to walk away, she trips and her glasses fall off, and everybody's like, what? Wait. Zoro picks her glasses up because she's looking for them and is going to hand them to her. And when he looks up, he sees his friend, I can't remember what her name was, guys help, for an instant, because this girl looks so like her. Kuina, everybody is saying. And the thing about anime is that the girls mostly all look the same. So it's one of those moments of she looks so much like her. And I'm like, yeah, so do practically all the girls. Like, you have to give them different colors of hair, different eye colors, or different clothing to distinguish them from one another. And so this didn't quite hit, but I got what they were going for. Florian is comparing her to Mercy from Cradle, which is I like that comparison. She even kind of could look like Mercy. I could see that. And he grips the glasses so hard in response to the shock of seeing this girl who looks so much like this person that he breaks them, and she gets really mad and tells him that he needs to pay her back for them because they were expensive. And as somebody who just dropped a bunch of money on glasses and was glad to pay less than I normally do. Yeah, glasses are a fortune. Everybody knows if you break your glasses, most of us don't have backup pairs, or if we do, our backup pair is like an old prescription that doesn't really even like do what it needs to do. It's a bad scene. Kyle says Oda drawing most women the same is something even he's joked about. Gabriella says he has a few basic sets and all female are based on them. The thing is, and this is something that I have run into with other, so you guys know, I haven't watched anime before this, and like what Candace commissioned. She commissioned the movie Your Name, and she has commissioned another movie coming up by the same director, but that's not until after my wedding. That has been my main takeaway from the little exposure that I have had to anime, was always that all the characters looked so similar that the only way to tell them apart was that they had a different wig on than the other characters. And I really do appreciate so far on this show that even though there are some similarities in facial structure, mostly they look like different enough. It's better than I expected. The women are the ones that are primarily like, and it's unfortunate, you know, because it's sort of like you're either one of this like particular exact facial feature set because that's what's considered attractive or even just acceptable, or you're old and fat. And those are like the two types of women. And I even like Owen and I had been covering Clone Wars, which we are quitting, by the way, but I don't know that anybody here cares. And we had mentioned that a couple of times on there. Clone Wars falls into the same thing where women are often almost the exact same facial structure as one another. And they'll just have a different outfit, different skin tone. They'll have tattoos or something, but they look really, really, really alike. And it can be just tiresome, you know? Like, come on. It just makes... It's another subtle way of implying that there's only one way we should look to be acceptable. And it's subtle, but it's frustrating. And meanwhile, other dudes get to be all kinds of ways. You know, when are we going to run across a female character with a nose that rivals Usopp's? You know, like, so just one of those things that I've just sort of already had accepted by the time I started, and was pleased at the fact that it wasn't too bad in this show. It's just with women, it's inevitable to a point. So Luffy gets really lost, and having been a tourist when I didn't have a cell phone or anything like that, I could relate to this. And eventually he sees a bar named Gold Roger, and he's like, oh shit. Goes inside, there's nobody there, just an old man who is very cranky. And at first, he just tells Luffy to get the fuck out. He's got a giant skull on the table also. And when Luffy asks about the skull, this guy starts telling all of these different stories. And Luffy is eating this shit up. He loves it. So yeah, this guy is apparently the owner. He says that he's shutting the place down. Now get lost. And Luffy says, I'm lost. I was wanting to go to the execution platform. Can you tell me how to get there? And just settles himself down on a stool. Without, like, this guy just told him to get lost, but he pays literally no attention. And you know what? Sometimes I wish I was more like this. I am so eager to please a lot of the time, you guys, that when somebody, like, if they're even mildly rude, I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry for existing, bye. I love that he's just like, I need something, I'm coming in, and I'm sitting down, actually. And I've been reading the Alphabet Mysteries by Sue Grafton, and there are moments like that with Kinsey Milhone where and I've just been reading them lately and been like, man, I wish that I could embody this energy a little bit more. So he comes in, sits down, and remarks on the skull, and this dude just sort of gets won over. This is what became of a guy once known as Killer Giant, a villain who sent hundreds of pirates to the afterlife. But Gold Roger sent him to his grave with just one blow. with truly lightning speed. This guy was famous for the absurdly huge blade he used, but their fight ended in the blink of an eye. This is the wound he received. But he was an infamous scoundrel himself. With his dying breath, he muttered, "Roger, my hat's off to you. May you have honor as the eternal pirate." And Luffy is literally shaking with excitement. Silver, the world's greatest gunmen, the giant Gowns brothers. They were all tough men who were as feared as demons. But for Gold Roger, they were as weak as infants. And I have to tell you guys something. First of all, in the background, there's a bunch of wanted posters. So we've got one guy that it looks like it says Shupil. I don't know what's going on with his head. It looks like he's got like ponytails sticking out from all over his head. There's a Gola, and it's cut off at the end, and that guy has like a chin 2 feet long. We've got Will O, and that guy looks like maybe he's got a cowboy hat on, but his head looks like it's wrapped underneath like a chic high collar. Henna Oyaji, but that one there's no image. It's been scraped out. And behind them all is somebody whose face has been X'd out. It's hard for me to tell who that is, if it's somebody that we have met. But I just wanted to acknowledge that there's like a lot of these. And I don't know if any of them are important. I have to imagine they probably are in some way. But yeah, this dude just gets very won over by how eager an audience he has in Luffy. And I don't think that I quite realized, you guys, how recent Roger's death actually was. I keep thinking of him as this man who lived in distant memory. It's like, to me, I the only like person that I can compare him to is oh my god, now I don't even remember the name. But we have somebody in our lore who was said to have left a treasure somewhere. I can't even remember now. Hundreds of years ago, and I sort of have had that in my head that that's how it was, that this is like a long storied history. But it was 25 years ago. A Smoker remembers the execution as a boy. 20, says Gabriella. I just can't, I just don't feel like it sank in for me how recent it was until we saw a character who remembered it and was there, and who isn't themselves old. Like this old guy telling the stories, I was thinking that he was just telling stories, not even that he had been there, but that this is an old man in a bar spinning yarns because there's somebody here to finally listen. I didn't really put much credence to it. But yeah, he was the only one to not fear the Grand Line. Back then, the Grand Line was an unknown area from which not a single boat ever returned after being swallowed up. It was a sea of evil that people feared and which few approached. And we have a scene where Roger is talking to a bartender and tells him that he's heading out to the Grand Line, and the bartender is like, dude, take my advice and don't go. It's a bad scene. And eventually he said, he tells the dude, you know what, just shut up. I'm going to do what I want to do. Roger asks for a cask of rum. And then the story ends with the old man saying something like, essentially, he drank everybody under the table and then he went out. And, oh God, Alex says it's the same bartender. Oh. He got old and small is right, Florian. This man looks like less than half the size. What? There's no way. Look. You can take all kinds of liberties, but that I do not buy. And I mean, it's only been 20 years. Come on. Really? There's no reason. Like, this person would have had to undergo some sort of no. I don't buy it. No, I refuse. No, definitely not. When I heard that he had conquered the Grand Line later, I was more happy than I was surprised. I was more excited than I should have been at my age. There's no way. His feet don't even touch the ground. What happened to him? Is he like a Buggy and he got chopped up and put back together wrong? And he says ever since that day, everybody's been throwing their hat into the ring, the great pirate era. But now look, the town's full of nothing but cowards and scum now. Men crazy enough to challenge that sea of evil are all but gone. That's why this bar is closing down for good today. And this is when Luffy says that he's going to the Grand Line. Gold Roger is what a pirate should be. I'm going to go to the Grand Line, get the One Piece, and be king of the pirates. And when he looks up, this dude has a moment of seeing Gold Roger superimposed over Luffy. It's honestly hilarious. Like, there's just... Luffy is so scrawny. He's so small. He's just, and this guy looking at him and being like, oh, for a moment I saw Gold Roger. No, you did not. I doubt it. But sure. So he offers him a drink. And I think it's just milk, is it? Let's have a toast to the eternal king of the pirates. And they have a toast, and then Luffy takes off just as Smoker walks in. And it's an interesting thing here, because he walks in, and the bartender's really not happy to see him. He says that you're trying to shut the place down. And Smoker says, it's wrong of you to hold a grudge against me. I only come here as a loyal customer. It's the pirates' fault that they're all cowards these days. So when he says, you're trying to shut the place down, what he means is basically that your intimidating presence is chasing out all of the pirates who would otherwise be hanging out here, basically. Let's see. Florian says, yeah, but I also don't buy it, to be honest. You don't buy that Smoker is not trying to to close the place down? I was going to say burn the place down. Alex says they have a similar energy, Luffy and Gold Roger, is what he meant, I think, with the fearless grin and stuff. Oh, and that's what Florian doesn't buy, that Luffy has Roger energy. Yeah, he just doesn't. I don't know if we're supposed to think that ourselves. I feel like because of that moment with the bartender, we are supposed to think that. But Luffy has, I am a babe in the woods. I am a sweet summer child with no fucking idea. That's the energy Luffy brings. Whereas Roger had a very, like, you know, basically like spit in the devil's eye, sort of like, whatever happens to me, and fuck it. I'm going to do what I want. It doesn't feel like Luffy has any idea that anything could happen to him. He's just so unconcerned with that part. And Roger doesn't have that sort of attitude to me. He's just, there's something almost nihilistic about him. Based on just the little bits that we've seen, you know? So, I don't know. But anyway, so, yeah, I am assuming that this dude is not trying to shut the place down, but that's like part of the deal with this guy saying that the town is just filled with cowards. And he uses his smoke to like grab a bottle off a shelf and just drinks it. Listen, guys, look, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something personal. The camera zeroes in on him as he grabs the bottle. And then on his neck as he drinks and gulps. I'll tell you what. Necks do it for me. That was hot. I'm just going to say it. I don't know what it is. I love a neck. Big, thick one like that. I'm about it. There's a scene like that in Witness where Harrison Ford like drinks lemonade really fast and it like pours down his neck and he's like sweating because he was doing something in the barn, and the girl who brought him the drink like kind of like gets a little bit red-faced and looks away because it's hot and she just does not know how to cope with that. And I was like, girl, same. And yeah, this show will do that occasionally where it'll have somebody like just, you know, be a ridiculous anime character 1 second. And then another second, they'll be super sexy in a way that I was not ready for. Usually it's Zoro, because Zoro's got those arms, which like catch me off guard all the time, even though I should be used to it by now. But this character has been so absurd that I was not ready for that. So anyway, he goes into his memory of the day that Roger died. And, we get a sort of, we cut back and forth between Luffy and his memory. And Luffy is like heading out to the platform, which apparently was super high up. It was like 4 stories in the air. And Roger gets led through the town looking like, you know, a badass. There's just no hesitation in him at all. And the way they execute him is wild. First of all, somebody's yelling about where did you bury the treasure? And the 2 dudes, as he begins to answer, are just like, dude, no, you don't get to speak without permission. And they just yell, execution, before they stab him each at the same time through the heart with their like spires. What do you call those? Pikes? I don't know. But what a wild way to execute somebody. Like, I was very much expecting that either he would be beheaded or that he would be hanged. I know that we had like, I only saw the intro the one time, so I didn't remember how that went. And this just seems like a much messier, less certain way of killing somebody. Like, what if you just each miss the heart just enough that he doesn't die right away? It just feels like there's way too much that could go wrong. Let's see. Bernadette says, yeah, lusting after characters is a thing. Sorry, you've been had now. And Zoro is just so yummy. He is. Gabriella says we're a community of simps. Yeah, Zoro's just, he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. It's the big dick energy. It's just that confidence. So yeah, this dude was up on this giant platform, killed in front of everybody. And when we go back to Smoker, some guy walks in trying to put up, like trying to get them to put up a new wanted poster, and he sees Smoker and is like, oh shit, sorry dude, didn't mean to interrupt. And the picture he has is Straw Hat. It's Monkey D. Luffy. And so it begins. We start the next episode with Luffy attempting to climb this platform. He attempts to climb it as if he has forgotten that he has Rubber Man powers. Guys, I'm going to tell you something that I am going to go with as canon now. I've mentioned before how I find it weird that this show decides that it's going to pretend he doesn't have Rubber Band powers sometimes, because they want the plot to go a certain way, and if he uses them, it would just shorten things too much, or he would be too OP. I am going to go with Luffy himself forgets that he has Rubberman powers. That's my headcanon. Luffy is so fucking out of it so much of the time that he himself forgets that he could just stretch his arms up and yank himself to the top of that platform. He does not need to climb it this way. But you know what? He tangles his legs up so that when he tries to attack Smoker later, he can't because he's stuck. He lost track of his own legs to such a degree that they tangle up. This kid forgets he has powers. Straight up. Just doesn't remember. I 100% believe this. This is the kind of thing that, like, if you have lived with somebody who is ADD, they will be standing there holding a tool in their hand that would make what they're doing 12 times easier, and they forget they're holding it, and they're doing something the hard way, and you're like, "What? Why are you tearing that with your teeth? You're holding scissors." And they're like, oh, yeah, right. That'd be easier. And it's like, how do you get through the day? That's what I'm going to say is going on with Luffy. It's not even the plot. It's not even the writer. It's straight up a character thing. He just slips his mind. It's fine. So he's in the midst of this when he gets interrupted by Smoker. And this is when Luffy says, "I refuse to get arrested in a place like this." Smoker says, "You don't get into the Grand Line until you can beat me. That's the rule of this town. That's assuming you're brave enough to fight me, of course." And Luffy is like, "Oh, perfect. I love it. Let's do it." And like I said, tries to fight him. His legs are still tangled up, and so he fails miserably and gives away the fact that he has devil fruit powers. I love when his torso stretches out. Something way weirder looking about that than any of his other body parts. And eventually he disentangles himself and tries to punch the dude in midair, but he's slow. And when he turns around, there is Smoker punching him in the face and wondering why this kid is even worth 30 million berries. I'm not even needing to use my devil fruit power. And he punches Luffy again so hard that he almost flies to the top of the platform. And eventually, in summary, Luffy manages to propel himself so hard that he flies off in another direction. So it's not even like he wins the fight. He just accidentally gets out of it, which feels completely correct to me. So then we have the bit with Sanji seeing this woman, but she's got glasses and freckles, and he's like, "Oh, it's not you." He's got a rose in his teeth. What a goon. We see Usopp with all of this stuff piled in a bag on his back saying, "I'll take this too." It's not going great for Usopp, man. He is going to be broke. And as Luffy is flying through the air, we see the, what do you call it? Pirate Queen Nameless, and I think is Buggy the Clown doing the card thing in the same bar? Because we see the bartender sort of look over, and the camera cuts in a way that was unclear to me, but are they in the same bar? But anyway, he's doing cards in order to like predict the future. And unfortunately, the cards say that when he goes up against Luffy, that he's going to be the one who dies. And as Luffy sails over the town, one of his henchmen spots him in the air and leans down through the window and is like, "Sir, we just spotted Straw Hat." So Luffy lands, and he's just like, "You know what? I guess this is as good a place as any to just chill out and nap." So that's it for him until much further on when he gets confronted by them, but we don't actually get to see a fight break out. What we get is mostly this episode, Zoro dealing with this girl who I still don't have a good handle on. She wants to offer him a job at the Navy to earn money to pay her back for the glasses that he broke. And this is such a weird thing. She like gets really insulting. First of all, she's like, you don't look like you have any money. Something about you just seems off. Those wrinkles between your eyes, that look of having eaten nothing for days. Do you have a sick mother? Did your wife run out on you and leave you with 5 babies to nurse? And she says all of this in a really aggressive, accusatory way, which I didn't really understand. And eventually I was sort of like, did that happen to you? Are you trying to be like, you don't have the right to be so pitiful when I'm going through all this shit and I'm not acting as pitiful as you? The whole like energy to her saying this stuff to him was really odd, and I didn't get it. And she just thrusts a mop in his hand and is like, yeah, this is what you're doing now to pay me back. And he says something like, I'm not doing this. And she's like, maybe it's your bad attitude that's your real problem and not your money troubles. And I was just like, okay, boomer. So Nami's walking by and she spots this and she tells herself, just pretend you didn't see anything. And I couldn't tell if she thought that he was like betraying them or if it was that she is embarrassed for him. I think it's that one. But yeah, so he uses the 3 mop method here. And eventually he watches her in the yard defeating a couple of dudes with like practically no effort. And once again has a moment of seeing his old lady love. And he gets confronted by these dudes who are like, what are you doing here? And they recognize him because he is supposed to have teamed up with Luffy. So he's part of the crew that's going to earn them 30 million berries. And they're like, we're taking you in. But all they get is smacked down. He apparently earned money in his pocket from this, or he robbed these guys. But he left money for her glasses. And then he goes to a sword store. It's hard to say. He doesn't have that much money. $50,000, 50,000 berries is apparently like nothing. But he wants 2 swords. And this dude is really irritated, not wanting to deal with him until he spots the sword that is in the sheath at Zoro's hip, which he recognizes as being incredibly valuable, and tries to rip him off, tries to get him to sell it to him for like a fraction, like not like a 0.5% of its value. And what is her name, guys? Remind me. She walks in and basically blows it for the shopkeeper, Tashigi. Thank you, Gabriella. And tells him exactly how much it's worth. And he finally is like, oh, fine, you screwed me. Go and take your sword back that I shined up for you. And all of those swords in that barrel over there are only 50,000 berries, so you can pick out of those. So Zoro goes and finds one that is a really good sword that is wild. It's being sold so cheaply, but it turns out it's cursed. And this dude is essentially like, I don't want to sell it because I'm worried that whoever buys it and uses it is going to die, and it's going to be as good as if I killed them by selling them something cursed. But I also don't want a fucking cursed sword in my shop, so I don't really know what to do with it. And Zoro is like, you know what? I'll buy it, and let's see if the curse or my luck is stronger. And he tosses the sword in the air and holds his arm out. and the sword just misses landing on him and lands point first in the floor. And he's just like, see, it's fine. And the shopkeeper is like, it's a combo of feeling guilty that he tried to rip Zoro off, recognizing that Zoro is a true swordsman, and grateful that Zoro is taking the cursed sword off his hands. He goes in back and brings out yet another really important, impressive sword of a different type and gives that to him for like practically nothing, or he just does give it to him. But yeah, it's a pretty good moment. And Tashigi like winds up crumpling to the ground when she sees how the sword misses him. I love too when he goes to pull it out of the floor, it's embedded almost to the hilt. Like, it's not just the point, you know, that shit went deep. And he winds up with his 3 swords and he is really happy. He struts down the street a little bit later and he's like, man, I do feel a lot more relaxed when I have 3 swords. So after this, we see all of Buggy the Clown's henchmen in weird cloaks. I guess this is for the reader to be able to distinguish them all more easily, because I have to assume, would otherwise just be wearing their wild clown-themed costumes, which would probably draw too much attention and make it clear that they were pirates. But I do feel like they could have just worn slightly less clownish clothing and not had to have done the whole cloak thing. I don't know. Call me crazy. But yeah, they're all like trying to find Luffy, and eventually there comes a point where he and Buggy are like positioned in just such a way that they're talking without seeing one another, and they're neither of them realizing who the other is. So finally, Luffy just runs off, and Buggy turns and recognizes him and is like, oh, God damn it. Meanwhile, all of Captain Smoker's guys, I love this so much, they are saying that they're going to send guys out, they're going to find him, they're going to make sure Luffy doesn't get away. And Captain Smoker's like, oh, he won't leave. As long as I am here, he'll come back. And I really enjoyed this energy. Again, he's very sensible. He's got like a good idea about Luffy, you know, still. So yeah, I was pretty impressed with like the confidence and how chill he was. And this is when these 2 dudes who got knocked out by Zoro come in and tell Tashigi that it was Zoro that was cleaning the floors. And she's just like, what? And Captain Smoker is like, why would he attack you? And the end of the episode is just him settling in, saying he'll show up, as Luffy decides that he is going to head back to the execution platform. For some reason, he wants to climb up there and see what it is that Roger saw when he died. For reasons, you know, like, it's one of those things that on the outside doesn't really like make that much sense, but also it doesn't make a lot of sense to want to walk up to a wall in King's Cross Station and hold on to a luggage trolley that's embedded in a wall, and yet people wait in line for a long time to do that and get their photo taken. So who am I to judge? We all have our thing. It's fine. Kind of morbid in Luffy's case, but fine. So that's the end of the episode. I have to wrap up. I am overtime as usual. But thank you again very much to Florian for commissioning this. Florian told me that I can watch the next 2 episodes or not, because those are the ones that are filler and they're not like necessary to the plot. And then the 2 episodes after that, Florian will be joining me for a Spoil Me wannabe on Friday. So just for those of you who are watching along, I probably will watch those 2 episodes just for, you know, put it on. I have all kinds of wedding planning shit that I'm having to do right now. I am so underwater on that stuff, you guys. So yeah, having stuff to put on in the background, I'll probably put them on dub and do some wedding stuff. So, all right, and I will see you on Friday, Florian. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.